In the hotel lobby, Sarah subtly disengaged from my grasp on her waist, her eyes scanning the crowd behind open ballroom doors. The music and champagne-laden air surrounded us after I'd made a jovial comment. With 7 years of marriage under our belt, I felt as if I had inadvertently touched another woman's spouse. She uttered those words without looking at me, her gaze wandering across the room filled with her colleagues, executives, and influential figures accompanying her promotion. I stood there, half-raised arm in hand, an awkward man who had misread the situation. I began to explain, but she hushed me softly, smoothing down her dress. Tonight, she requested, let's keep things strictly professional. Professional. A year ago, she would have gripped my hand in grocery store lines and leaned into me at parties, flaunting our connection to the world. Now it seemed we were merely work associates. She was subtly increasing the space between us, treating me as a potential hazard. I acknowledged with a subtle nod and smile, affirming. Naturally, I replied, nothing should compromise the image. She shot me a cautious glance, neither angry nor affectionate, simply vigilant. Within the ballroom, she moved ahead of me instead of walking beside me. Introduced me to 2 supervisors as my husband, Mark, as if it was scripted. Her hand never sought mine. That's when I sensed it. Not jealousy, not yet. Something more chilling. If she preferred distance in public settings, so be it. Right there, I decided to give her precisely what she requested: space. This hadn't commenced tonight. 6 months ago at a networking gathering, she withdrew her hand and chuckled it off. It appears clingy, she'd said casually, as if helping me adjust a misaligned tie. I apologized. In truth, I expressed regret for touching my own spouse. Since her promotion, everything seemed to come with guidelines. No public displays of affection when the team was present. No endearments at events. Avoid interrupting during conversations with higher-ups at work, even though it seemed logical given my new position and stress. My intention was to be supportive, to be a good partner. However, the consequences extended beyond work hours. At restaurants, we sat facing each other instead of next to one another. At movies, she placed her handbag as a buffer between us. At home, our discussions shifted from meaningful topics to logistics, utilities, shopping lists, dry cleaning pickups. She started retiring earlier or later, but always separately. One night, she mentioned needing space to sort herself out and that I was too close. I withdrew, both physically and emotionally. Tonight, however, was intended to be a change. I bought a new suit and practiced not looking uncomfortable while shaking hands with executives who possibly earned more in a month than my annual salary. I decided to prove to her I wasn't a burden around her neck but a source of support. Instead of standing by her side, she instructed me, not here. In that grand ballroom, observing her cheer at a joke from an aging executive, I comprehended something more. She wasn't ashamed. She was controlling the situation. So I moved away, not just stepping aside but vanishing, not literally but tactically. I helped myself to a whiskey from a passing tray and navigated towards a cluster near the bar. There were 2 salesmen debating quarterly figures and a woman from marketing who seemed incredibly bored. I flashed them a smile, introduced myself without referencing my wife's position, kept it casual, unforced. It turned out I was quite at ease in such settings when not attempting to impress my spouse. I chuckled with them, asked questions, paid attention. Somewhere along the way, the woman from marketing, possibly Jenna, touched my arm during a story and remarked, "You're surprisingly enjoyable for someone forced to attend events like this." To which I replied, "Maybe I'm not forced." In the room, I spotted Sarah engaged in discussion with 2 high-ranking executives. Yet her eyes kept glancing my way not just once but repeatedly. Her smile subtly tightened each time she noticed me laughing. Yes, I thought maintaining professional distance was wise. 30 minutes later, I found myself conversing with Jenna about a disastrous product launch. Before I realized it, Sarah appeared beside me. "Mark," she said coolly, "can I have a moment of your time?" Jenna politely smiled and moved away. "What's on your mind?" I inquired, keeping my tone even. "You're being a bit too noticeable," she replied. "In what way?" "As if you don't know me at all." I held her gaze. "I'm giving you space, keeping things professional," I answered. For a brief moment, she seemed speechless, just staring at me as if I'd changed the script without consent. Then she forced a smile and said, "Just make sure you don't embarrass me, embarrass her." That word lingered in my mind. After the music amplified, people relaxed and she drew closer again, not for intimacy but to suggest departure. In a low voice, she said, "Feel free to leave if you wish." As she spoke, I exited alone. The parking lot was nearly vacant as I stepped out. A chill filled the air, accompanied by silence so profound it amplified my breathing. I entered the car, locked the door, and listened to the distant throb of music from the ballroom through the glass. She had instructed me to wait in the car. At only 11:10, I told myself not to dwell on it. Corporate matters often entail politics. Perhaps she genuinely needed to discuss with her superiors. Perhaps my concerns were unfounded. As time ticked by, 10 minutes elapsed. Idly, I tapped the screen to deactivate the rear camera view, and instead the feed activated. There she was. She exited through a side service door, not the main entrance. She walked hastily towards a darker area of the parking lot, not toward our car. Instead, she approached a black sedan parked 2 rows away. I remained motionless, only observing on the small screen as the sedan's driver door opened and my younger brother, Dennis, emerged. Without any physical contact, they entered the same vehicle and departed. I stayed in the car, gripping the steering wheel as the hotel music continued playing, seemingly oblivious to the change that had occurred. I chose not to pursue them or call her because something significant had taken place, and I decided against reacting as they anticipated. The camera feed now displayed an empty parking lot. That instant, I could have triggered a catastrophe. I chased after that sedan, hauled them outside into the parking lot, forced them to answer my questions under the streetlights, yet I remained steadfast in my spot. Consequently, I began reviewing the previous 6 months as if on surveillance footage. Dennis's frequent drop-ins at our house became more noticeable, especially on nights I worked late. He'd claim he was in the area, which never added up because he lived across town. Sarah offering to help him revise his resume, preparing him for job interviews, and spending time with him at the kitchen table with a laptop open while keeping their voices low upon my arrival. These were events I remembered distinctly. A family dinner a month ago stood out. My mom laughing, my dad carving roast beef, and Dennis and Sarah exchanging a brief, unobtrusive glance across the table that made me feel as if I had missed a crucial piece of their conversation. I had dismissed it then because why wouldn't I? My wife, my brother, it was unlikely I would suspect them without reason. 40 minutes later, headlights illuminated my windscreen as Sarah approached my car, her heels clicking rhythmically on the pavement. She tapped softly on the window as if awakening me from slumber. "Sorry," she murmured upon my door's opening. It had taken longer than anticipated. "Leadership matters?" I inquired. "Yes," she replied, key choices looming. Her scent was absent of champagne, her demeanor unruffled. She fastened her seatbelt and scrutinized her phone before tucking it face down into her handbag. This subtle act echoed with weightiness that night. In silence, I steered our vehicle homewards. She harmonized softly to a radio tune as if nothing amiss transpired. I chose not to confront her immediately. Instead, I opted to observe. The ensuing 3 days, I refrained from spying but merely ceased averting my gaze. Upon entering a room, she'd ever so slightly adjust her phone before placing it down. Not overt, just enough. Once, I glimpsed the illumination of a messaging app on her laptop prior to its swift concealment. "You seem nervous," I remarked casually. "Deadlines," she responded, avoiding eye contact. "It's always deadlines." Intriguing that her late meetings coincidentally corresponded with a dentist who suddenly took up nightly gym sessions. I verified this fact, not compulsively, only once. His gym photo was posted on Tuesday at 8 p.m. while Sarah texted me at 812 stating she was still working. No need to rush home. The picture's backdrop didn't resemble his typical gym setting. On Thursday evening, I suggested a straightforward plan. "Let's visit that late-night cafe," I proposed as she prepared to remove her heels. "The one where we first met, just the 2 of us." She hesitated subtly for a moment too long. "I can't tonight. There's something important." "How about tomorrow? I'll update you later, not now. I need some personal space, Mark." "Personal space," she calmly reiterated, as if reciting a company motto. Around 2 a.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She didn't silence it promptly. Instead, she picked it up and stepped out onto the balcony. I remained in bed, unmoving. The door slid shut imperfectly. "I can't at the moment." He's beginning to perceive. "We require additional time. I am aware of our agreement." The remainder was drowned out by traffic sounds, yet I didn't need that portion. The following morning, I contacted Dennis, and I didn't soften the blow. Dennis responded as if nothing was amiss. "What's up?" His tone seemed ordinary. That made it even more difficult to bear. "I will inquire just once," I said. "Are you involved with my spouse?" There was no indignation. "No, what are you suggesting?" A lengthy sigh echoed through the phone. "Mark, it's not as you imagine, then enlighten me on how to visualize it." Another pause. I could hear a door shutting at his end as if he sought privacy. "Yes." He didn't speak assertively. He didn't even offer a defense, just stated it. For a moment, I contemplated shouting or cursing or uttering something I couldn't retract. Instead, I felt oddly calm. "For how long?" "For several months." "For several months." The same duration as the delays in our meetings, the late nights. The phone faced downward. It wasn't supposed to transpire, he hastily appended. We didn't intend to harm you. She's been distressed, buddy. She couldn't find a way to inform you. She feels confined. Halt. He did. She told me I was smothering her, I stated, that I needed to provide some space for air. He remained silent because he understood. She was constructing an escape route. I continued in a hushed tone. And you were stationed at the exit. Mark, it's not as simple as that. We hold affection for one another. We weren't planning to deceive you forever. We merely required time to work out how to inform you. Time for preparation, to plan, to organize, to ensure a tidy separation. I ended the conversation without further dialogue. Then, for the first time in months, I ceased doubting myself. 2 weeks prior, when she hinted at possibly living apart, I discreetly consulted a lawyer. By the moment Sarah entered the front door that evening, I had already reached a decision. That evening, I hadn't planned to broach the subject with her. Upon entering, Sarah appeared weary yet professional, as usual after work. She discarded her heels and placed her bag gently. A pause fell upon her when she noticed the 2 glasses of wine on the coffee table. "Ah," she said softly, smiling slightly. "Is there a reason for this?" "Sit," I instructed. My tone caused her to hesitate. Instead of sitting next to me as usual, she chose the opposite seat. I refrained from offering her the glass. Earlier in the day, I had spoken with Dennis. This revelation caused a subtle change in Sarah's expression before she could mask it, not bewilderment or curiosity, but fear. "What is it about?" she inquired, yet her words lacked conviction. I asked him if he was involved with my spouse. The room became deathly quiet. She studied me intently, as if measuring the extent of my knowledge. "Mark," he admitted, confirming my suspicions. Her shoulders sagged slightly, subtly, as if releasing a burden she had been carrying for some time. She started. "It's not as you assume," I replied. "That route no longer applies." "I'm aware," she said, glancing at her hands. "No tears, no apology, merely contemplating. This wasn't premeditated," she added. "It simply transpired for months." She flinched as I continued. "You were about to ask me to vacate." "So you could find yourself," she interrupted. "Was that prior or subsequent to your revelation of affection for him?" Her gaze sharpened at the word. "Who informed you?" I remained silent, instead pulling a folded document from my coat pocket and placing it on the table between us. A lease agreement. I'd secured the deposit that day. Move-in was scheduled this weekend. "I will be moving out this weekend," I said. That's when fear registered in her eyes, and then she grasped that this wasn't a discussion, but an ending. She stared at the lease as if it were written in a foreign tongue. "You're actually doing this?" she asked. Her voice broke on the last word, not forcefully. Unremarkable, merely puzzled. Eventually, I moved a wine glass towards her, but she didn't reach for it. "I believed we were here to discuss," she stated. "Perhaps find solutions," I retorted. "You and Dennis have already resolved this issue." "That's unfair," she countered, on the verge of laughter. "For half a year you've been saying I'm too intense, too present, too near. You claimed you required distance. I'm granting it to you." She altered her breaths. "Faster now." "I didn't intend for things to unfold this way," she said. "I was trying to proceed properly. The correct approach would have been informing me before you fell in love with my brother." She rose then, pacing back and forth as if seeking the ideal emotional stance. "I was going to tell you," she asserted, "but every time I tried, you were so composed, so trusting. I didn't want to disrupt your life." "My life has already been disrupted," I whispered. "You just wanted it to appear mutual." That halted her. She had planned a narrative where we drifted apart, where I was distant, where she made a courageous choice for happiness. "You're not upset," she murmured quietly. "Why aren't you angry?" I gazed at her for a while. "If I shout," I replied, "you can label me as unstable. If I plead, you can feel vindicated. I'm denying you both." Her eyes welled up then, filled with real tears this time. "Mark," she whispered, "what if I pick you?" That was the first unexpected move. I rose slowly from my seat. "You've already chosen," I said, and headed towards the bedroom to gather my belongings. Behind me, I heard her say my name in a way she hadn't for months. However, I didn't look back. I didn't take everything with me. Only a suitcase, a duffel bag, items that were undeniably mine: clothes, laptop, a framed photo from before things became complex. I left the wedding album on the shelf. She remained in the hallway as I moved between the bedroom and the front door. Her tears weren't loud, just present, watching me all along. She seemed as if she expected me to crack. "Speak," she eventually murmured. I fastened my suitcase. "What do you want me to tell you?" she asked. I needed to say that I was hurt, angry, and this mattered to me. Instead, I looked at her. "It mattered," I said. "That's why I'm departing." That was the last thing I told her. In the parking lot, the night air contrasted with the hotel's a few days earlier. It was less puzzling, more conclusive. I loaded the bags in the trunk and took my seat behind the wheel for a brief moment before igniting the engine. My phone vibrated on the passenger seat, displaying her name. I chose to let it ring. Then another call followed. "Dennis!" I flipped the phone over, not due to fright or tactics. I merely had no use for it anymore. After a week, I submitted the paperwork. The procedure would take some time, but it had commenced. A week later, I entered a modest coffee shop close to my new apartment. I ordered a latte and settled by the window. No one there knew me. In the establishment, there was no room for me. The barista hastily placed the cup, causing a small amount of coffee to spill over. "Apologies for that," she said. "No worries," I responded, dabbing the edge of the cup with a napkin without moving it or retreating. I simply remained seated, occupying my spot. For the first time in months, no one requested me to vacate. Cheers for sticking around till the end. Share your thoughts on this narrative below.